Welcome back to Battery Park once again. Thundersport GB, we saw some cracking race action from the Bike Sport News Superstock 600s earlier, and here they come to have another crack at it on pole position. Number 47 is Nick Anderson, alongside him 118 is Dan Chappell. We've got number 35 Matt Shellcock, and outside of that front row 111, the earlier race winner Joe Collier. Well, Sid's on the march. It's green flag time at the back. That means the red lights go on. It's watch the lights time, and the Bike Sport News Superstock 600s will be underway. Very competitive championship indeed. Nick Anderson, number 47, initially gets away well from pole position. Just it over into Gerrard's for the first time. We saw Rory Parker there, number 90, around about 6th place, Steve, I think.
Yes, and well, I'll also mention a few riders that aren't out. Adam Robinson, after that crash in race 1, unfortunately not out there, and Tom Meehan, a championship regular, possibly when he could still win the series. Tom Meehan on the orange or pink bike, whichever you fancy, not here either.
Oh, do we know why?
Yes, he's at Glastonbury, I do believe, so well, his choice.
Yeah, I have heard he's a big Beyonce fan.
So, at the front then is Nick Anderson that leads. He's the new championship leader. Then Tommy Mountain, Joe Collier, Paul Wishart, Dan Chappell, and there's Curtis Wright, number 74, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Beyonce, the biker's friend. Now, underneath the Jordan Road Servicing Bridge, down into Gerrard's for the first time, and it really is game on at the front of this. And there we see 118, having had that front row start. Dan Chappell, well, he qualified really well in the greasy conditions. In race trim, though, Steve, doesn't seem to be doing quite as much on his game in the dry conditions. He's in 5th place at the moment, but look at that. Tommy Mountain on the Cool Cow Yamaha moves up into the lead.
Yes, Tommy Mountain, who had a fantastic round at Cadwell Park in the wet, just ahead then of Nick Anderson. And Joe Collier, what a great race win that was in the earlier episode. He looked delighted with that, and really does look at one with that Triumph 675. There is Dan Chappell, you're mentioning. He does ride well in these greasy conditions, but when it's sunny, unfortunately, not quite up there with the front runners, but I don't think it'll be long before we see him moving up. And just behind him, I think Chaz Beale making good progress once again.
Yeah, he's looking stronger and stronger with each race, isn't he? But there's Paul Wishart in 4th place, the young Scots rider we mentioned earlier, of course, carrying that injury from his off at Cadwell Park. But isn't it amazing how you get these little things happening, these little quirks like Rossi's get your foot off as you run into the corner, and suddenly the whole world's doing it. I'm not quite sure if it helps him go any quicker, but
I don't think it necessarily helps them go any quicker, but maybe it just, if the bike was to drop, they feel that they'd be able to pick it up back up with their foot. I'm not really sure, but he's banned from the Supermoto style riding out on track racing, so maybe in not too distant future he'll get banned from this racing as well, because I can't see how it's going to help. And you know, if someone was to have their leg out and then someone was to go up the inside, potential accident, who knows?
First time something goes wrong, it'll stop. But there we are, Paul Wishart round the outside, trying anyway, into Gerrard's, and that's big and brave. We've seen it work in another couple of races. He's just not quite carrying enough speed there. But it's worth mentioning again that Paul, before this season, hadn't raced any of the mainland circuits. Scott circuits, yes, but he had no experience down here at all. He's literally learning every circuit with every lap of his riding.
He is, yeah, and with the exception of that crash, oh lovely, round the outside of Joe Collier there, up into 3rd position, and with the exception of Cadwell where he did have that fall, he was looking right on it. And oh no, and there's a big crash there from Nick Anderson, and championship leader is down.
Goodness me, that's a very quick place to come off on the exit of the elbow. Oh, that is good to see. He's up immediately, upset with himself, but he's over the tyre wall, thank goodness for that. And well, you could say he got away lightly, but he'll be just ruining the points at the moment. But what about this, Steve? One person's misfortune. Closing up in 4th place now is Chaz Beale.
Yeah, Chaz Beale, great dry weather rider. Doesn't fancy the wet quite so much, but we've been seeing more and more of him. And, you know, he got a 3rd position over at Cadwell Park in the dry, but then when it turned wet, he fell slightly down the field. Will it be too long before we see him on the top step, I wonder?
Well, you'd hope not for his sake. There we see Paul Wishart up into second place. Yellow flags out there still covering the marshals, clearing up that incident, so everyone maintaining their positions. But yes, Paul Wishart in second, and Joe Collier now seems to have picked up his pace there in third place. It's almost as though he's realised there's a few more laps to go. Chaz Beale's closing in on him behind. He may be able to get something else out of this. There he is, Collier, followed by Chaz Beale, number 94.
Yeah, I think any one of these riders might just be able to sniff out a victory here now that Anderson's out. There's John Blundell, number 177, just going around behind Curtis Wright.
Curtis Wright, too, only a season or so ago, we saw winning in GP3 here at Mallory Park. But look at this, Tommy Mountain almost caught there by Paul Wishart on the run up the hill, but Paul slightly getting the turn in at the hairpin wrong, and once again you see all that he gained on the run up the hill he loses in that one little manoeuvre, but not really a lot in it, Steve, as they cross the line onto another lap. Paul Wishart once again concentrating on tracking Tommy Mountain.
Yeah, Paul just needs to stay consistent here and grab some points. You know, with the championship leader out of it, this would be good for him if he can get himself 20 points. He doesn't want to do anything too silly, but having said that, he's a racer, and we will find out as they go into Edwinas. No, still Mountain from Wishart. Joe Collier in third, somewhat of a silent assassin, I think, after that race one performance. And then Chaz Beale in fourth. Despite the progress made, he's just dropped off the top three again a little.
Yep. Well, in the top four, three of them are Yamahas, but there is the triumph of Joe Collier in third place. Now he's a little bit closer to the guys ahead this time.
There's Rory Parker, number 90, ahead of Curtis Wright, and then number 24, that's Michael Cooper.
Work their way through the bus stop, but look at this, the leaders are saying that they're closed up. Well, they've Constantine right up, haven't they? And these three now just at the moment stretching it slightly over Chaz Beale, and Joe Collier comes from a long way back. My goodness me, that was beautifully done, sir. He does them both. And Joe Collier up into the lead. Tommy Mountain down to second. Paul Wishart still there in third.
Well, it's almost as if he's been saving that, and because he's got past and he's just got a couple of bike lengths ahead of them. And Paul Wishart now having a look up the inside of Tommy Mountain. I don't think either of these guys were expecting to see that. And Joe Collier now in prime position to take victory. A little bit further back there you see Dan Chappell, 118 against number 90, Rory Parker into Shaw's hairpin.
Dan Chappell having a real old glance across there, saying, where do you come from, mate? Well, there you are. Parker just takes the place and runs down the hill through the elbow as the last lap flag comes out. Well, Joe Collier, has he timed his move perfectly? It looks to be the way. He's into and out of Edwinas. Paul Wishart's still there. Oh no, Paul Wishart, I say still there. He's actually got ahead of Tommy Mountain, hasn't he?
Yeah, Tommy's fallen back a bit, and Wishart is the only one standing to try and pounce on Collier, but I don't think he's going to have enough time.
No, Joe Collier looking very comfortable at the head of this. Well, Paul Wishart, as you say, good points for second. Tommy Mountain will be, I'm sure, ruining his mistakes for third, but there, a checkered flag and a win for Joe Collier, thoroughly well deserved. Paul Wishart, an excellent second, and Tommy Mountain, well, good work there, and an excellent third place. Ahead of fast finishing Chaz Beale, Jason Brown was fifth. Rory Parker got up to finish sixth. Joe Collier, Paul Wishart, and Tommy Mountain then on the podium. In the standings, well, Nick Anderson, despite not finishing, still leads, not by a lot, but he leads from Paul Wishart, Adam Robinson, Tommy Mountain, Tom Meehan and Sam Ludgate.